We'll give it a couple more minutes, guys, to respect folks' time. So hopefully we'll get the committee members here and we'll have an official quorum for an official meeting. If not, we'll start as an informational meeting. Ms. Curran, do we have any items that need to be voted on? I know we got to approve, other than approval of the minutes?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Madam Curran, Miss Curran, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Councilmember Thomas?
Present.
Councilmember Giarrusso?
Here.
Councilmember Harris? Councilmember King? Councilmember Green is
Present.
We have a quorum.
The second item on the agenda is move approval of the minutes of the October 24th Public Works, Sanitation, and Environment Committee meeting. I move.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Green. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda, Ms. Curran.
This is a presentation from the Sewage and Water Board on their 2023 accomplishments and their 2023 fourth quarter report.
Sewage and Water Board. Ready and present? Well, present. Maybe the question should be present and ready. If you guys could assume your positions and state who you are and why you are, and we can start your presentation, please. Thank you guys for coming.
Absolutely. Good morning, council members. My name is Grace Birch. I'm the Communications Director at the Sewage and Water Board.
Steve Nelson, General Superintendent.
Rene Gonzalez, Chief of Customer Service.
All right, thank you all.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes, thank you all very, very much for having us this morning, for the opportunity to share some accomplishments for 2023, and then as always, looking forward to 2024 and how can we improve. We know that there are a lot of areas in which we can improve and want to be sure that we're having that dialogue openly, honestly, and here with you all. The first slide that I wanted to open up, I wanted to touch quickly on pumping and power. That is ever before our minds. The power complex project that we'll talk about later on in the presentation is going to be fundamentally transformational for us. But in the interim, over the course of the next 18 months, we need to keep a very close eye on our pump and power availability. We right now have 40.5 megawatts, which is very close to being able to provide enough power to address all of our stormwater pumps as well as our potable pumps. Turbine 4 is still offline. We have some issues with the oil cooler that we've got to finalize. We hope to be testing that next week with the goal of having that back online next week. But if that does not occur, we will provide real-time updates on that. We've launched the dashboard. We've gotten really good feedback on that power, that real-time power and pump status dashboard that we have on our website, but we are continuing to improve that. So if you all get comments, the comments we receive, we're taking those seriously and trying to make those edits in real time as well. With that, Rene has a couple of slides he'd like to go over.
So I'll go ahead and start the section of 2023, the year in review. This is elevating customer service efforts. So as you can imagine, we've interacted with customers a lot this year. Our customer service team in particular answered over 217,000 calls, helped over 4,600 customers in our customer service centers, and we received and answered to over 42,000 emails. Although we're really proud of those results, and after struggles with staffing, we're finally back up to 90% in our customer service department in regards to staffing. And as a result, we've decreased customer wait times overall. In the call center specifically, we've answered calls on average 2.5 minutes faster by the end of 2023 compared to 2022. Other successful efforts that are important to share occur as back office processes, so not always visible to customers, but also have an impact on our customers' experience. Through continuous monitoring and improvement efforts, we've reduced two very important backlogs. One of those is account transfers, and the other is bills on hold. Account transfer backlogs are orders that we receive in regards to transferring an account from one customer to another, disconnects, new connects, that sort of thing. And bills on hold are bills that are intentionally held after they are flagged because they are over a certain percentage. We have established parameters. So account transfer backlog was reduced. We had around 5,000 in 2022. And we have around 300 today. And those 300 are completed in less than 30 days. In regards to bills on hold, at peak, we had over 10,000 bills on hold waiting to be manually reviewed and analyzed. And I'm proud to say that today we have less than 3,000 bills on hold, so that's a reduction of 66%. And again, bills on hold are held intentionally after they are flagged for some sort of issue. In regards to the installation of smart meters, and we'll provide additional details on the smart metering project in the next slides, but another aging part of our infrastructure, as you know, that has been a major pain point for our customers is our existing mechanical analog water meters. In 2023, we hit the ground running with the implementation of our smart metering program after years of preparation. And we have installed 11 of our 12 base stations, which will allow the new smart meters to connect to the SWIFNO system and transmit hourly water consumption data to our system. And with the infrastructure in place, we began installing smart meters in September of 2023, starting with the larger 1.5-inch and 2-inch meters, then tacking on standard 5/8-inch meters. As of December, we had around 1,400 meters installed and communicating with our base station, and the most recent data that we have is that that number has increased from 1,400 to around 3,000 meters today. This program is a major priority, as you know, for 2024, and we'll provide additional details on later slides.
In addition to that customer service effort, I wanted to talk about physical infrastructure repairs because that's as much a part of customer service as some of those other experiences. We did an awful lot of work this year, and the vast majority of it was done by those network zone managers that you all recognized a number of weeks ago. Really appreciate their work and very proud of that group. Over 26,000 work orders completed and an overall decrease in the backlog of 25%. The key focus within that group last year and continuing to be this year is pavement cuts. When I started here in January of 2023, we had one pavement restoration crew and a backlog of over 3,000 open cuts. Last year, through the efforts again of networks, did a lot of work. Also, our contractors completed over 4,600 pavement repairs. That's an increase of 57%. over the previous year, and we also have now 3 to 5 crews in the field daily. Internally, we're able to keep up with the number of cuts that we make in a week, and the goal is this year to be able to eliminate the rest of that 1,500 work order backlog so that we can get from an average of 70 days to 2 to 4 weeks, which is our goal, so that customers don't have to look at those potholes. Yes, sir.
Councilmember Green has a pending question. Councilmember Green.
I was at a meeting just yesterday where the question of work orders was brought up. Now, that number seems kind of very high, 26,000. So could you explain what a work order is that the public will understand? And look, I want to tell you, just yesterday, work was done on Demottlin Street on a very serious leak, and it was stopped. But obviously, there were other leaks that occurred throughout the city, encampment and other places like that. You've been getting around to them. But that number, I think, needs to be explained a little bit better, because it's not you breaking up cement and fixing leaks and things like that. What is work order?
So every time a customer calls 52 Water, which is the best way for our customers to connect with us, that generates a service request, and that then is sent out if it is, say, a leak or an issue with the sewer or a major storm water issue, which is kind of our 3 main buckets of work, or a paving issue that's related to one of those repairs. That then goes to our emergency dispatch department, which then sends out an inspector to investigate. Now, sometimes there will be things like an oak tree that's fallen down or something that should go to Parks and Parkways, and we'll try to refer those matters, but those wouldn't generate a work order. So work orders are items of work that are related to Sewerage and Water Board infrastructure. But you're correct, it may not be an actual hole in the street. A work order could be an investigation of a sewer line. It could be a review of something within the storm sewer system. It doesn't necessarily mean physical work, but it does require someone to be on site and to check that location. And a lot of times it does result in physical work.
So you've had 26,000 instances of somebody going out to a site?
Yes.
How do you have that without the personnel that you need? Or I guess people are making 10 or 15 a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Our inspectors are addressing dozens a day. So I get a report every week of A and B work orders. Now, these are locations where folks will go out, say, and have a sewer house connection backup. With the heavy rains that we've gotten this fall and winter, we've been addressing anywhere between 100 and 200 house connection backups a week, between 200 and 300 A and B related jobs a week. And that's in addition to the regularly scheduled work that's not necessarily an emergency. Our infrastructure, it's a very old city, and that comes with very old infrastructure. Our water mains, for instance, fail at a rate 4 to 5.5 times the national average.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a lot of work.
Okay.
Thank you, and very good question. The goal, again, is to be able to keep up with that, and we want to move forward with asset management, an asset management approach that starts to look at proactively replacing more of these water mains. That JIRR program that you'll hear about from DPW has been really instrumental, but we do want to continue that forward so that we're replacing those oldest, most failure-prone water mains before they end up breaking. That's the next step for us, and that takes time to make that happen, but we're working towards that.
Okay.
So next slide, 4 water main projects, as I alluded to, that were completed this last year through JIRR. We had 1,262 water main repairs. I alluded to that 4 to 5.5 times the national average. That's the rate at which our water mains fail. And I just got some information this week. We're looking at where do those mains fail. And it's in part age, but it's also in large part the soil conditions. So those areas along the river, the water mains could be 100 years old in that River Ridge area, but they tend to last and hold up better than some of those areas that have more organic and clay soils. Also, 258 sewer main repairs, and as Councilmember Green alluded to, we are working to staff up and try and get to those things more proactively, doing larger projects in the future. I want to touch base on the Power Complex project that remains on schedule for June of 2025. That's what we're looking at right now. And that's where we've got to get to. This is going to be a transformational project. So we talked about that opening slide with Turbine 4. This will remove Turbine 4. It's a wonderful old piece of equipment, very interesting, but being built in 1915, it's very fragile. So even when it does come back online, It's still a very old piece of equipment. We want this power complex project to come online as quickly as possible. That'll remove that risk that we have with turbine 4. It'll add the functionality of turbine 6, which is a brand new turbine, also turbine 7 as backup, but we will have dedicated service from Entergy's station over at 9 Mile. Next slide. I wanted to touch on protecting water quality and the importance of that. Everyone's aware of the situation with our water testers last year. I want to give everybody a quick update on that. Video cameras have been installed. We have been conducting monthly audits looking at GPS data, and we've also been able to augment our GPS system so that it will automatically flag when our sample takers are on site taking samples. So we've done, I believe we've gotten to a place where we have a well-trained workforce that is reliably taking samples, and I want to be sure that folks are aware that we've taken this very seriously, and I feel very confident that that system is working well and will continue to do so going forward. Also wanted to take this moment to talk a little bit about backflow prevention. This is a program that you all may have gotten some information on. You may have gotten some questions, but I wanted to touch base on it here over the next couple of slides. This is something that we do because LDH and EPA requires it. It's also important. There's kind of two main reasons. If we lose pressure within our system, and folks are familiar with the boil water advisories that come about when we have less than 20 pounds per square inch within our system, there is the potential for water to flow back into the system through one of two primary means. It could be back pressure. So if you have, say, a 3-story building, that water at the top of the building can be at a higher pressure than the water in the main, so you could get water flowing back into the system. We want to be able to prevent that. So that's the intent of this backflow prevention program that we have. With the next slide, kind of touching again on why it's important, it's a health hazard. We want to be sure that the water that is in our mains is the water that is leaving our system. It's chlorinated, it's disinfected, it's been filtered. We know that it's safe because we test it dozens and dozens of times a day. And it's also an obligation for us. We want to be sure we're meeting that so that our customers are protected if we do lose pressure within the system. Next slide. The process by which this program is taking place, it starts with an initial survey of our customers to see if folks may need backflow prevention or a backflow preventer. If you have a pool, if you have a fountain, if you have a building of a certain size or use, you may be required to have backflow prevention. And it could be something as simple as including an air gap between the hose that you're filling your pool or fountain with and the pool or fountain itself. That is followed by an initial letter, a pamphlet explaining backflow prevention, if needed, a second and third follow-up letter, and enforcement really is a last resort for us. We don't want to get to that place, and I want to jump to the next slide if we can and just put out there that we do have a number of customer resources so that if folks have questions, we want to be sure that we're providing that information to our customers. There's a portal, a list of approved assemblies, plumbers, and then this is a phone number that folks can call and an email address as well in the event that individuals do have questions.
We know there's been a lot of questions from constituents about this program, so if you guys have any questions, we're happy to answer those. We had a few council staff training sessions on the program, just to clarify things. Our next slide speaks to developing our workforce. As we all know, to continue improving our utility, we have to invest not only in the infrastructure, but our people. We have to hire the right people and incentivize them to stay. Each June, we host a job fair. Councilman Green, it's always a pleasure seeing you there. Last year, we saw 900 attendees. Sewage and Water Board hired 80 new staff as a result of that job fair. Recently, we also hired a new HR director. She's currently taking stock of our workforce development practices and exploring new ways to boost recruitment. To improve opportunities for our employees, we also launched an effort called the People Plan. This is going to help us determine the proper workforce model for our unique utility. The study involves detailed research, employee engagement, and will provide recommendations on how Sewage and Water Board will handle compensation, growth opportunities, retention, recruitment, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And our goal is to support a high-performing workforce that is skilled, committed, inspired, rewarded, engaged, and accountable. Yes, sir?
Comment,
Please.
Councilman.
Yeah, Councilmember Green, then I have a comment here, too.
I do want to thank you all for having the job fair, the annual job fair. It was good to see so many people show up. It was also good that you provided drug testing on the site.
Yes, sir.
What was unfortunate was that so few people took advantage of that. I don't know what that's a symbol of, but that was obviously, if you were looking for a job, that was a way to get in line. But can you talk about 80 versus the attendees and why maybe with all of the vacancies that you have, we would have thought that there would be more?
No, thank you for.
I know drug testing is important and other factors.
So I believe that 80 refers to, as you're saying, the on-site hires. We had the drug testing. You could do other mechanisms to really get hired on-site. And so that, I think, is referring to we hired 80 people on-site. I can get you a better number of how many attendees became employees. Maybe that's a little bit harder for folks to wrap their arms around. And we also hope, we timed this in June to get our high school graduates kind of on the right path, but there could be that perhaps we could do them with more frequency to kind of get more people on board.
How many vacant positions are there at the sewage and water board right now?
I know within the general superintendent's office, we've got upwards of 160. So we've got a lot of open positions. And to Grace's point, we've also been talking about having some more specific job fairs. So for networks, for instance, having one located there at Networks, bringing HR out there so that individuals that want to be involved with the construction group, we can provide those opportunities there at that site and doing them more frequently.
There are opportunities for those who have been formerly incarcerated too.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Especially on work crews.
Yep.
I just want to encourage the public to recognize that that's 100 jobs, many of which can be filled. No job pays less than $15 an hour. They all have retirement and also health benefits. It's frustrating, but it's just a reality of today that we have such a need, especially for work crews, that there are vacant positions that could be easily filled. Just want to encourage the public and organizations to recognize that those opportunities are there.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councilman Giarrusso. You have a question on this because I do.
No, sir. I'm waiting for the receivables.
Okay. You mentioned developing the workforce and growth opportunity.
Yes, sir.
I think it's a wonderful thing that we have people who are not from here who make this their home, who bring their expertise. But one of our challenges within our systems is to be developing that talent within systems. We know agencies like Sewage and Water Board and some of these historical institutions are really critical because there are people there who are aging out. Many are retiring who know what bone is connected to what bone and what switch to push or pull. Well, talk to me about the effort of developing the talent of the people who are there already. And like I said, because recently we have several people who are not from within the system, who are in advanced supervisory or management positions. Is that because of a lack of talent pool? Is it because of a lack of interest? But I've always thought when you talk about sustainability and longevity of an agency, it's important to develop and promote and create growth for those people who are there and have been there and want to be there. So what are we doing to look at our talent pool within the agency?
Yeah. I think that's exactly what the People Plan effort hoped to address and exactly what the new HR director wants to do. As you say, that institutional knowledge, that recruiting from within, even the timing of the job fair to get our homegrown folks that we know are graduating to keep them in the city. It sounds like, I think the People Plan effort is kind of ready for a presentation of its own, and we can address those questions with you or have a meeting with you to kind of talk about where we're going with those efforts.
Well, that's going to be extremely important to me. And like I say, I appreciate people bringing their talent here, but especially when you talk about management, labor, growth, human resources, providing opportunities from within, it's important to HR directors and executives to know who's in the pool, to know their relationship to the agency, to know their talent. Because what I don't want to see is an opportunity where the people who maybe felt they were not granted the opportunity are training the people to do the job that they could have been given an opportunity to do. And I'm just going to be real candid with you. I see that across the board, especially in cities like New Orleans, where, you know, we have all of these experts that are not from here. I'm an expert whenever I'm out of town, too. There's nobody really doesn't know how, then I don't know what I'm talking about. I can wing it. But I think there needs to be a special effort to develop talent within the city. And to Councilmember Green's point, there's some cultural issues about work and going to work that we're going to have to address within our community. Because there are too many folk that are not taking advantage of opportunities that are right there ahead of them. But I think we have to do a better job of advertising, going to high schools, going to college, working with workforce development so that folk can see where they fit and how they fit and how we can help them develop talent to do those jobs. I don't think we've been very good at that, as well as this whole culture now, especially coming through COVID, where many people have not even recognized that there are opportunities back out there in the workforce.
Thank you for that.
So that's my comment, but we'll talk about that in depth and in detail because I'm paying attention to some stuff within our agencies now that's, I don't want to say it's alarming or disturbing, but I think we can do a better job of providing growth and developing talent within our systems.
We couldn't agree more. Thank you, Councilman.
I very much appreciate that comment as well and want to echo from a network's perspective the motion that this council took up in January to make that pay change for those networks, zone managers, and then planner schedulers and QASIs is already having an impact. So it's rectified a pay and equity issue. We've got folks that are already backfilling those higher level positions, and it creates that ladder for those that work at the board for decades. Of which I'm not a number, but we have so many, and I am so grateful for those individuals that have sacrificed. I couldn't agree with you more. They need the opportunity to thrive and to see a path that compensates them correctly and provides them an opportunity to lead.
Continue.
Yes, thank you.
So on to the funding resources. To accomplish all of this and our future goals, funding, as we know, is required. Our team has been very creative about how we tap into available funding resources, such as state revolving funds, capital outlay, HUD, IJA, and other grant programs. As a result, the Sewage and Water Board has received over $105 million in state and federal funding. This funding will help us get a long way, but it's important to note that federal and state funding cannot fill the revenue gap that we have for critical capital investment projects.
So with that, we'd like to go through some of the key points of our Q4 2023 report. And the first slide that I've got here is with relation to non-revenue water. So last year in Q4, we produced of the 3.5 billion gallons of water produced, we had about 76% that falls into the non-revenue category. That's a very high number. Now, I do want to say that does include free, I say quote unquote free accounts, but things like parks and parkways, the jail, these other consumers do not receive a bill. So I firmly believe that smart metering will help with that. But there is also, as I mentioned before, our water mains break at a rate of 4 to 5.5 times the national average. That translates into water that we make that we then are not able to bill for. Now, our customers have all been able to get the water that they need, but we absolutely are cognizant of this number as being outside of the realm we want it to be, and we're going to be focusing on that here over the next number of years. With that, I'll turn it over to Renee on a couple of slides related to receivables.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to ask this. Yep. This number is half of what was been reported before, and it looks like the only thing here are active residential accounts, 60 days and above. What's the AR on the closed inactive accounts?
As of December 31st, 2023, we had around 12,000 closed accounts with a combined unpaid balance of $15.6 million.
All right, so that makes the total roughly $73 million. All right, so I just got to ask this. At one point, the number was 137 million. Then it went down in August to 107 million. Now we're at 73 million. What is accounting for the AR going down? Is that the debt being written off, or is that collections?
It's a combination of all of the above.
All right, so split into what percentages?
I don't have that information with me. I'd have to, typically Gray Lewis, our CFO, would be able to answer those questions, but he has a board of directors.
All right, I mean, I would like that information because, you know,
Absolutely.
it's if it was $200,000 or $500,000 in an organization that's so big, I wouldn't be asking the question. But the difference between $107 million and $73 million is significant. And I'm just saying this.
It's 97 million.
Right. I mean, there's a significant amount of money that has changed between August to December, and Sewage and Water Board is constantly saying we need more money for stuff. We need money for pipes, we need money for drainage, we need money for pumps. So I and I think we and the public need to know what's happening with that money, because as we're trying to prepare for the future, as we're looking at AMI, as we're looking at a stormwater fee, explaining what happens to such a large slug of money is so critically important to everybody.
And we absolutely can provide that information.
Yeah, please do, because I think, and then Renee, I guess my next question would be, and this is probably more of a Steve question, I would think, more than a Renee question, is if, let's just pick half the number. The difference between 107 to 73 is 34 million. So if, let's just assume Sewage and Water Board recouped 17 million of that, where'd it go? What was it spent on? Did we fix water pipes? Did we do service cuts? Did we clean out canals? I mean, that's the kind of stuff I think people want to know. If the numbers are starting to trend in a different direction, good, but then
Absolutely.
the what?
Yeah. So we'll get back to you with that information within
thank
the
you.
next, 24 to 48 hours. And just to talk on this specific slide on accounts receivable, so at the end of December 2023, although Joe already sort of like described the slide for me,
Councilmember Green had a question on the previous slide
The
before.
only reason we have to do it this way is because I can't see my name on the screen, so I can't press it, and then Councilman Thomas can't see it. So I don't mean to interrupt, but I'd like to ask you to comment on commercial outstanding. I mean, $17 million. To the discerning eye, that seems like a lot for businesses. I sometimes understand some of the residential. Look, I know people who don't pay their bills, and whenever we say that water's not going to be turned off, they don't turn it off. Also, we have they don't pay the bill. There's also a lot of meters that are running and toilets that are running that people don't understand. But can you explain such a high amount for commercial? What am I missing? Is that just an average business that hasn't paid? We're looking at 400
that's
different accounts.
yeah, and that's a combination of small, medium, and large commercial, including industrial accounts. And on that one, we have a list of top 100 debtors. Probably you've seen it somewhere. So really, the majority of the bigger chunk of that amount is not by a whole lot of commercial customers. And we're working with our top 100 accounts on a personal level, a personal basis. We've also hired just a few days ago a consultant to help us form a strike team for accounts receivables and collections. And we also recently, now this is probably a couple of months ago, hired a consultant, a Fuse fellow, to help us form a billing strike team. So this is an opportunity we have to ensure that the integrity of the data is where we need it to be before moving on to smart meters. So I know I'm a little bit off topic here, but we're working with most commercial customers on an individual personalized level, trying to negotiate, reach some consensus and resolutions so their businesses are not impacted. We understand we have a role in the economic development of the community. And I can provide some additional detailed information if you'd like to. I'd have to follow up with it if you want more specific numbers as to how it's distributed amongst different class of commercial accounts.
Are we looking at hospitals and medical clinics and entities like that that I wouldn't want the water to be turned off? Or are we looking at
No,
a restaurant that is charging for its products?
So
and
mostly
others?
manufacturing, some larger commercial, but not necessarily hospitals or critical services facilities.
So they're just refusing to pay? A manufacturer certainly uses a lot of water.
Some unfortunately are, yes. Yeah.
Before we left,
Are we being polite with them? Or not turning off their water? If you're manufacturing along the waterfront, you're generating some revenues when you ship your product out. I don't understand fully.
Yeah, I mean, there's trickle-down effects of any action that we take, right? And impacts community either one way or another. But we are also somewhat constrained in regards to our capacity to turn off customers.
Commercial customers or residential?
And just about any customers, really.
You're constrained by the council?
Excuse me?
Are you constrained by the city
No,
council?
constrained in our capacity,
I don't understand.
our labor. So.
Labor.
Labor,
Okay,
yes.
All right.
Staffing. And we've said it repeatedly, turn-offs or shut-offs are last option in any type of negotiation when we deal with customers. And in regards to the preferred solution, it is always to either have customers enroll in payment plans, be it residential, commercial, any type of customers. We had around 2,800 payment plans in Q4, and that was a big improvement over Q3 because what we want to do is provide customers options so their services do not get shut off. Right?
Can you give me an example of the dollar amount of the largest commercial customer who is 60 days due?
so there was a finance committee meeting this morning. Before we left, I got to sit in on a bit of that. And Gray Lewis, also Mr. Corban and Mr. Lewis would have been here if not for that meeting. He had a great slide that broke down commercial, residential customers and the amounts that they were due, whether it was $1,500 or $2,500, $5,000. So I'm happy to get you that information so you can see what percentage of commercial or residential owe what percentage of money and for how long that they owe it. And that could help some of your questions. And then if we want to drill down on the specific accounts, we
No,
can.
I don't want a name. I don't have to
Yeah.
expose
Right.
them. Give me an example of the dollar amount that the largest commercial customer who is in arrears owes.
Okay,
We can
we'll
certainly
get that to you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Y'all just saw it this morning. You can tell me right now.
Well, he had it by category. He didn't have it by individual
Yeah.
account.
Okay.
But we can get you that information.
All right.
Or if you know it, Renee, you're welcome.
It's a lot. It's
Hey, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
But I am trying to put the business on the spot.
Yeah.
How much does the largest commercial customer owe the Sewage and Water Board right now?
I can't recall off the top of my head. I will say that we have large commercial customers that owe either in the high hundreds of thousands of dollars or low whatever comes after that.
I know, but you know, and I think that you know that especially you all have had a lot of work with us. We have provided sufficient funding in different categories. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but there does come a time, I think, in the city where people and entities have to be held accountable for services that they receive. If businesses, you're telling me somebody owes hundreds of thousands of dollars in outstanding water bills, but that's not really a staff constraint because you could really turn that water off and remove that meter.
Correct.
It's better to work it out. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear anybody getting, well, I shouldn't say that because then I become part of the problem. When I say I don't want to see people laid off because the water's turned off, the challenge, though, is that we don't want to see the taxpayers stuck with millions of dollars of write-offs,
Correct.
which is what's going to happen eventually. So there is that balance that you have to get to. But whatever we can do to help without being specific, but I would like to know.
Yeah.
I would like to
We're
know.
happy to
Absolutely.
get that
Because
data.
what I've also found sometimes is that some entities have simply said they're never going to turn off the water. And so therefore I won't pay and they'll get money from somewhere else, maybe the federal government or something like that. I think it's important that everybody, to whatever extent is possible, be treated fairly, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. With you 100%, and thank you for your continued support.
Yeah, I wasn't going to weigh in on this point. I think there's some valid points made about, especially in terms of debts being paid and what's owed. But there's another side of this too, in terms of the deliverables, right? The time we live in, the difficulties right now. And we happen to be in a hard knock city where we cannot not consider that. But also we cannot not consider the performance of the agency in terms of from customer service to billing practices to boil water advisories to system breaks to sometimes, which it seems to be better now, with who's on first. So yet, though the public has a responsibility, the public is more ready and willing to participate with government when they think we're more responsible or when our reactions to their issues are more timely. So I appreciate my colleagues' comments in terms of who owes, but we owe the public better performance first. And when we perform better, then I think we can expect better from them, and that's from all of us. And it's not just slighting you, but there's some people who are taking some of these comments another way, maybe thinking that the onus is on the public. No, it's a partnership. But it's a partnership that relies heavily on our ability to deliver critical services that people can't live without. While we're recognizing the difficulty of this time we're in and what people are going through. And how do we strike that balance? Councilmember Giarrusso was that voice before I was on the council the last couple of years. And I think he's tried to implore us to strike that balance. And I think we're getting better in terms of responses, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, and it's always difficult given the type of service that we deliver or product that we deliver, which is water, right? So there's this, humane perspective of water, but you also have this responsibility to be able, like Joe said, and others have said, to make sure that we do a good job recovering revenue, protecting revenue, because then if not, it becomes subsidized by other ratepayers, right? And that's also not fair. So it's a slippery slope. It's tricky. We don't want to turn people off, but obviously we have a responsibility to protect the utility. And if we do not, then we fall in places in which then revenue becomes.
Yeah, but we found that the public will pick and choose who they want to support. They turned down some millages. Then they saw a millage for kids and recreation, schools, and they supported it. Then they put some other millage and they turned it down. So it's not that people don't want to pony up even in difficult times. But what they want to know is that when they pony up, that we're delivering that service to the best of our ability. And I think you guys are doing the best you can. I think we're going there. I see the numbers going down. But I think we have a ways to go to strike that balance that Councilmember Giarrusso and Councilmember Green want. And that I think it's incumbent upon us to show the public that we're to the point where they can invest more in us no matter what the struggle is. And we're not there yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please finish the presentation.
The call center.
And then just some quick stats on the call center for customer service. So in Q4, we received 15% more calls than in Q3 of last year. So we received a total of around 60,000 calls during the quarter, and we maintained an answer rate of around 84%, and saw a 6% increase in average calls answered within 6 seconds or less compared to Q3 on average.
All right, so along those lines, point is very well made about the metrics against which we're measuring our success. And part of that key is measuring how quickly are we internally responding to issues and how quickly are our contractors responding. So this table is one that we've included in the last couple of quarterly reports, and we're going to continue to do so. I did want to point out some of those numbers have changed a bit from the last time that we had that report to this fourth quarter report, and that's because I realized that we had been reporting on work orders opened and closed. It did not include work orders that had been opened and remained open. So I would much rather be transparent, and if we have an issue, know it and address it. There's a couple of good stories here. Paving, while still beyond that 2 to 4 weeks, I want to see every one of these categories in a 14 to 30-day response time frame. Paving is at 78. That's down from 100 last year. Sewer house connections, that's over 3,600. So Councilmember Green, you mentioned how many holes are we actually making. These are physical responses. There's over 16,000, and this is just a selection of our highest work orders. So our networks group is completing a lot of work. Areas that we really do need to focus on this year and the next year, water hydrant leaks, the number of those is relatively small at 366, but we really need to get that time frame down from 90 days to, again, 2 to 4 weeks. Want to do the same with sewer main repairs. The next slide, this is where we're really going to be focusing this year. These numbers are frankly way outside of the parameters that I'm interested in seeing. The only good news here I can say is that over the last 3 months, we've seen those numbers drop fairly significantly in terms of deliverable timelines, but we're working very hard to make sure that our contractors are delivering in a timely fashion. And we've got some really good ones, some really responsive contractors, but those that aren't, we do have renewals that we may or may not exercise. We want to be sure that we're paying our contractors in a timely fashion, but also that we're delivering that level of service for our customers. This next slide is related to JIR projects, but I know that DPW will talk about that in a lot more detail. We did complete a number of transmission main projects across the city, including one on South Dupree, some disaggregated work across Eden, Grape, and Dupree, and then St. Bernard. The project that's going on right now is the big one on Claiborne. That work is ongoing and will replace one of our oldest and most failure-prone transmission mains in the city. Next, I would like to talk a little bit about our construction report for the year. We had 27 disadvantaged business entities that we awarded contracts to in the amount of $18.8 million, and that represents an average of 36% DBE sub-award per contract, which is in line with the goals that we have as an organization.
Okay, I want to stop you right there real quick,
Yes.
real brief, because it's a pending problem that seems to be mounting. And it's especially harmful when DBEs, or minority contractors, are granted work, but they can't get paid. So why are you giving me work if I have these outstanding balances that are still with your agency? You're not helping me at all. And consistently, Councilmember Giarrusso and Green, I'm hearing about minority companies and small DBEs and women-owned companies that when you talk about accounts receivables, their accounts receivables are gone crazy because they can't receive the receivable for the work they did for the city agency. What are we doing to get that number down? Those are voters, right? You want to come back with a millage, you want to come back with a fee. Those people who are doing business, what are they going to tell their employees? What are they going to tell their family members when you guys go back to the community to ask for an increase to fix the old failing system? Why would they say give the agency more money when they haven't gotten their money? What are we doing inside the water board to fix that? Small companies cannot afford to wait for $60, $70, $50, $25, $100,000. It decides their fate in many cases. What are we doing to fix that?
Yeah, I know there's at least one particular instance that one of our subs...
Miss, did you fill out a card? Because we have a... Go ahead.
Yeah, I know we've worked on that internally, but if folks do have issues with that, I certainly want to hear about those individual instances, because you're absolutely right. We have to be paying our bills in a timely fashion.
Well, you've got some individual instances that your agency already knows about, that your director already knows about.
Council member?
Yes.
May I add something very quickly? To this point, I met with the CAO's office yesterday because the city has this issue too. And the three things that I mentioned that were the maybe four that are most important to us are contractor subs being paid net 30. There has to be a more timely, and if a contractor makes a mistake, then how do we notify them so it's not pending forever? Number two, the streamlining of documents. The idea that we can't just plug and play certain contracts or cooperative endeavor agreements. It shouldn't be so hard. And then number three, just having regular maintenance contracts. So I want you to know that those concerns that you, Councilmember Green, other colleagues have raised, I hope we can learn. And the other thing too is, I don't know about this specific issue, but I did ask the city to get in touch with you about Sewage and Water Board about certain procurement issues, because I can't figure out sometimes why Sewage and Water Board can do a service cut faster than other agencies can do things. So if there's things that we are doing process-wise that we can learn from, great, but that net 30 was at the top of my list too.
Thank you. Continue with your presentation, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'd like to talk about some 2024 priorities. I'd like to hand it back to Renee on smart metering.
Thank you, Steve. So we continue installing smart meters throughout the city, and a new customer portal will also be a major focus in 2024. This new technology will revolutionize how we do business. Our current old meters have slowed down over time and may underread water use, meaning that the water that's used might not necessarily be accounted for with our current meters. New smart meters are more precise and can measure all the water that moves through a meter, and also allow us to read meters remotely rather than manually. So these are two of the more important benefits to this technology, that we can pretty much, or we will be able to eliminate estimated bills, and also inform or alert customers in regards to constant water use before they receive a high bill, and avoid all that process altogether. So that means that we can get ahead of any issue before it really occurs. So with smart meters, we will also have an enhanced customer portal where customers will have 24/7 access to their water use information, and also with budgeting tools. And customers will be more empowered to have control over their bills as a result. And we really see smart meters as a solution to some of our more challenging issues that we have in the utility. So as you can see, we have some numbers in regards to the pace of installations and what we expect to be able to install during 2024, which is around 75,000 meters, and this is a combination of all classes of meters, from large meters to the regular residential ones. As we continue to install smart meters, we will also proactively be informing customers of lead service lines, which is a very important topic, as we identify those and what steps they can take to protect themselves. We've also begun installing new smart meter covers that meet the needs of the new technology but preserve the iconic crescent moon and stars design our community loves so much.
All right, with that, I wanted to touch base on some of our drainage needs. We talked about paving being a major priority here in 2024. Drainage is also something we're going to be focusing on. We've put together a list of projects, and over the next 10 years, we believe we can spend upwards of $1 billion if we had it available. Unfortunately, it is in large part unfunded. You've got some photos there of specific projects that we'll take a look at here in a moment. Just to give you a quick look at revenues, our drainage system is funded by tax dollars. by millages, of which 40% of the users of the system do not pay into that. Those are tax-exempt organizations.
Quick question on the
Yes,
drainage
please.
piece. Several years ago, there was a drainage renewal that was defeated. I think the Business Council raised several $100,000 and defeated that renewal. Have we studied what was the impact of that? Or had we had that drainage renewal, what impact it would have had on drainage repairs and moving forward in terms of the drainage system? Because that's a big issue right now. Have we taken a look at that, went back to that time when that I would love to know that, because the business community is on point now talking about stormwater management,
Yeah.
drainage, and how we can improve drainage. Well, they were critical in defeating that renewal. It wasn't a new millage, it wasn't a new fee, it was a renewal. How much money did we lose, and what was the overall impact on the system?
Yeah,
At some point, I'd like to have that
take a look at
information.
Yeah, the fruit of it is we do have a very old system, and you look at the dollars and cents there. We've got $3.5 million in capital funding for one of the most complicated drainage systems on earth. So we see the fruit of that today in those unfunded capital projects that we would really love to be able to do, but just can't because we lack the dollars and cents. But a great question. We will take a look at revenues that have been lost in projects that could have been done. Looking at what we would do with additional funding, there are projects across the city. The discharge bells at Drainage Pump Station 7. That's necessary we have to have those bells in proper working order in order to operate the pumps there. You can see there, and we'll see in a photo in a minute, they are severely corroded. The generator at Drainage Pump Station 14 in New Orleans East, we have a backup generator there, but the house generator does not function. We need to be able to replace that generator. The SELA program that's had a lot of work in the Napoleon and Uptown corridor, and there's a lot of work going on de Gaulle right now, that does require a cash match. If we don't have the funding to be able to make, and it's a relatively small cash match, it's between 25 and 5%, so we can really leverage those dollars. So if we lose the ability to leverage that funding, we lose out on that federal share. And then also being able to take the next phases forward in the power complex are really important. So looking at Drainage Pump Station 7, that's a little bit of a closer photo there. You can see it's not even connected to the piles there. We're doing the best that we can. We're moving forward, and that station is operable, but we really want to be able to replace those bells, and that's not an insignificant cost or time frame. Next project, again, I mentioned about Drainage Pump Station 14. This is not the oldest of the generators we've got, but it's still one that's upwards of 40 years old. It really needs to be replaced, along with the ones at 10 and 16 as well, because we want to be able to provide that redundant power service. And then finally, we're taking a look at our water system with a water quality master plan. We'll be kicking that off the second week of March. This will be an 18-month process, and it's going to study in depth what we need to do at our water treatment facilities. Taking a look in particular at saltwater intrusion effects and some of these other effects that we see with changes in climate, and then putting together recommendations for how to address things like the forever chemicals, PFOS, PFO, lead and copper rule, and then also want to be able to start some physical work here as soon as that's done. That's going to be the foundation upon which we're requesting federal dollars, because as Grace alluded to earlier, if we have that planning document in place, we want to be able to pursue federal and state funds, because every dollar we get from outside is one we don't need to ask our ratepayers for. We do really appreciate everyone's support. Thank you for your time this morning. I did want to mention on that subject with DBE payments, sometimes those can be sub-payments from primes that I may not be initially aware of. So if you all hear of those, even if we're not the one cutting the first check, I really do want to know about that, because those partners need to be paid.
But there's ways. That's not a new issue. There are ways to deal with that on the front end. If the prime knows that if they have a history of not paying their subs, they're not going to get paid, or that there's some follow-up in terms of the process of payment, then you can remedy that problem. So that's not a new issue. Some primes will hold on and get whatever interest they can for as long as possible until somebody makes them pay. There are other primes who have the first thing they do is pay their subs, because they're more solid They have better relationships with their subs. So I just think it takes the agency being mindful now, especially now because we're trying to increase women-owned and minority participation. And the only way we can increase participation is people knowing that they can financially participate. All right?
Absolutely.
Thank you guys very much. Next item on the agenda, Ms. Khan.
We have a presentation from the Department of Public Works regarding the status of the JIRR program, streetlights, and the Ground Transportation Bureau.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Once you're settled, if you could give us who everybody is and your title and start your presentation, please.
Introduction.
Oh, introduction. Khalid Saleh, Program Administrator, GIR.
Good morning, Shannon Blanks, Deputy Director, DPW.
Rick Hathaway, Director, DPW.
Kristen Watson with Public Works.
All right. Thank
Rick?
you for having us.
Thank you.
We have a presentation that will begin. We're going to talk about the JIRR program, streetlight maintenance and repairs, and the GTB Ground Transportation Bureau. So we'll start with the JIRR. Khalid?
Okay, the GIR project has been moving forward in a good base. During the past year, 2023, we have issued 19 notice to proceed for construction in 2023. And as you see by district, is shown the percentage of the construction issued in each district. We have substantially complete and finished about 26 projects in 2023, and also is shown by district. For each district, we have in A, about 45% of the projects were in construction have been completed or substantially complete. In District E, 13%, District D, 13%, C, 10%, and B, 19%. So we are moving forward with more projects to close out and substantially completing those projects. Next slide. The next slide shows looking ahead for the number of NTP notice to proceed for construction on the JIRR RR 159, which is San Anthony Group A. This one, the pre-construction meeting for it is held right now at DPW. So the equipments and the contractors should be able to start within the next 2 to 3 weeks. The other project that was awarded toward the end of last year, it was RR 174, which is St. Cloud Group I. The construction or pre-construction meeting will be held at Department of Public Works today at 10:30, 11 o'clock today, and it should be starting construction within the next 2 weeks. Also, one of the projects we have is Box Culvert Repair, which is the 2500 of Orleans. The contractor starts the Wednesday after the Mardi Gras, and they're doing construction right now. Looking at the future projects for the infrastructure projects, DPW 18, which is Cambridge Street, that should be done within the next 2 weeks. I just verified this with the project manager. For the RR projects, the joint infrastructure projects, we have about 10 of them will be also completed by the first quarter of this year. So RR 03, which is Bayou San John, 004 Bayou San John Group B, 22 RR 22, Gentilly Wood Group F, Lilwood, Lower Ninth Ward, the other Lower Ninth Ward South Group A, Marville Fontainebleau, Mid-City, Plum Orchard, Tremé Lafitte, 183 and 186. All these should be completed by March, end of March. The next projects we are prioritizing as to go advertise and bid is shown on this slide, and it's RR 135 is Pine Village Group C, RR 211, which is Pontchartrain Park, which is a combined project between the RR 142 and RR 143, RR 82, which is Ring Street, 217 is the Florida Development Area, RR 39 is Fillmore, 68 is already Iberville, is already advertised as of yesterday, should be awarded within the next 30 days. RR 129, Mylan Group A is the only projects in this neighborhood, and it was awarded 2 days ago, and it came about $6 million from our initial cost estimate, then the engineering estimate. And RR 219 and DBW 704, which is the Canal Boulevard, Canal Street and Rambert Street. These are the list of projects. It should be advertised and awarded within the next, hopefully, 30 days. You should see all of them on the website, and then we'll award them and start construction.
I know we went through that pretty quickly. If you have any questions concerning the JIRR.
Just about the completion cycle, when you talked about, you listed the projects that should be finished. That's been kind of random the last several years. Projects that were supposed to be completed but lingered for 2 and 3 years longer. So is it, when you mean completion, is it final done or just completed as it relates to the scheduling?
No, complete, final, and done. Substantial completed, maybe like we are missing a little curb. We need to adjust the catch basin, minor issues.
Okay.
But it's usable and it could be drivable.
Okay. And those minor issues will then be dealt with after if they're still lingering.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Those minor issues, sidewalks, catch basins. I had a street in my neighborhood that was done, and then the minor issues weren't done for 2 years.
That should maybe, I don't know which project you're referring to, but if you could give me the address or the location, I could.
That's why I want to know if it is done mean done or just
done means done, and it's usable.
Okay, so it's done.
Done.
Okay, all right.
All contract items completed. Done.
Completed.
Okay. So let it be written. So let it be done.
Done.
Yes. And the department has become more aggressive with holding our contractors responsible and the A&Es. We're writing cure letters. We're bringing the contractors and the engineers in for discussion, and we expect them to represent us and construct these roadways properly.
Okay. All right.
Moving along, we'll talk about the street light system, maintenance, and repairs. Shannon?
All right. So the street lights in the citywide are approximately 97% functional. Last year, we completed right around 5,700 outages. We reset 879 leaning poles, installed 170 new poles, and retrieved 300 knockdown poles. This year, we are also on track we repaired 513 outages so far, reset 98 leaning poles, installed 18 new poles, and retrieved 12 knockdown poles. Right now, there are about 13 sites with major repairs in progress that impact about 89 lights. These repairs also include our holiday season preparations to make sure all the lights on Canal Street were available for the lighting. We also did 392 lights to repair preparation for our Mardi Gras season. We're also working closely with the mayor's group to discuss repairs on our densely populated urban areas ahead of the 2025 holiday season, as we also host the Super Bowl. The interstate lighting system is about 85% operational. We have 43 interstate lights that we maintain. The power was restored and the lights were repaired on Pontchartrain Expressway between South Broad and Carrollton, and on the I-10 in New Orleans East from Bullard to Gannon. Since this year, we have repaired about 345 interstate and underpass lights, and 470 interstate lights still require some repair.
Interstate's 85%? Since, what, yesterday?
We did the calculations yesterday, yeah. It's about 85% functional.
So have you, so the ones from the dome to the high rise, they're on now?
Dome to Metairie, we have
I
South Broad to
got
Carrollton.
videos, right? I do.
Okay,
But this was done last week, where I drove from the base of the high rise in District D
okay.
to the dome, and 85% of the lights on the interstate were out.
On the entire Orleans is?
I-10.
I will have to double check the numbers. That's
Yeah,
not my
and then I went
understanding.
from the dome to Carrollton, and 75% of those lights were out.
I can get you the actual interstate numbers section.
Yeah, on the interstate, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the entire interstate, including underpasses. 80.
And so that's how, when you said that 85% on, I didn't see the 85%.
Okay,
Or maybe you're looking at your percentages another way.
Well, I'm looking at-
And not to pat us on the back, but they were also out in Jefferson Parish all the way past Loyola. They were out there too.
Unless there was an outage I was not aware of yesterday. But I will definitely pull those numbers.
Please.
And send you, I have a report that was just generated yesterday.
We'll add too that there's a couple of areas that the power has been turned off so that the DOTD can continue their sign replacement contract. That includes the I-10, I-610 interchange near the high rise, and also portions of the interstate from the Carrollton interchange towards Metairie. So those areas are out right now, but once the DOTD completes their work, we'll be able to turn them back on. So technically they're operational, they're just turned off now because
So they're
of these
out on
projects.
purpose.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I do have a question.
Yeah, Councilmember Green.
I think that this is a good time for me to bring up what I've brought up in the past. I don't really know why we aren't trying to negotiate with the state to have them to maintain along the interstates. Is it something that is not possible, or is it something that we just haven't done? I mean, 4,300 lights being maintained by the city. And it's important for the public to recognize that when those lights are out, it's not always that the city has them out. For example, the state has made a decision that they want to do LED lighting, which is all right, which is a good thing. But you don't just turn out one LED light. One light. You might turn out 20 of them to get that done. And it's hard for the public to understand. I know that's the position that we are in just as elected officials. I try to explain all the time that the state actually does the development, if you will, or the infrastructure, and we maintain. So when those LED lights go out, the city's got to replace those LED lights, right?
That's correct.
So I ask you, as I've asked Mr. Threat, what is that based on? Why do we do that, and can we negotiate that back? Especially since we have in place a governor who is wanting to see certain things happen in the city. We're having state troopers come down. We're having involvement with the district attorney's office. We're doing things along those lines. This may be a good time for the request for relief from the state on certain things such as this, especially since we don't make the decisions as to what type signage and what type lights are going to be in place. How do you comment on that in general?
That's a valid point. We do have an issue with maintaining the lights on state highways, especially the interstate. However, it's the DOTD's policy that lighting on state highways and the interstate system is the responsibility of local government. So all 64 parishes have to live with that. I do agree that maybe it is time to talk about this again, and the secretary was down here, met with the mayor recently. We can certainly discuss this policy with them and see if there is any relief for us. They do participate with the installation of new lighting and capital replacement of lighting, but they do not participate in the maintenance of that.
4,300 lights in a city that has challenges getting labor in place to do even tree cutting is just a concern. And if there's any time, I think, to look at that cooperation, this is the cooperation now. The state troopers coming to New Orleans is an example of the fact that the state wants to have a different relationship with the city of New Orleans. This may be the time, and I hope that I'll ask each of you all to pursue it, that maybe we look at whether or not it's more efficient for the state, which does the installation, to do the maintenance too.
Yes, and it's their roadway, so any activities they would control. When we have to go out there, we have to get permits for traffic control and that sort of thing. So it is a difficult situation, especially on the interstate, and it's worthy of more discussion, and we will take care of that.
And I'm not trying to put any state officials on the spot, but the maintenance of areas under the interstates, under the high rise, I mean, the city has taken up millions of dollars in responsibilities, whether it be in maintaining cleanliness under the interstates, those homeless encampments, for example, the cleanups that were done, you know, at the expense of the city, the providing of services and the like. It's just that it may be time for a good overall discussion of the role of the state in terms of its cooperation with the city on an issue that is something that, at the end of the day, we didn't really have much of a choice on in some respects, you know, where the interstates were going and the type down ramps and the facilities there. There's a lot of lighting enhancements that can take place. There's a lot of cleanups that can be done. We just closed an encampment but never mind. I'm not going back to the homeless encampment. I talked about that enough. My point is that the state, I think, is maybe in a position now, especially with surpluses reigning, to be able to work with us on those issues.
Yes.
That's a long-standing discussion that goes all the way back to Ski Roll, Morrison, Moon, Dutch, Sidney, Mark, and every mayor that we've ever had. If the state would just let us keep the funds we generate within our boundaries and not take their cut off the top, we wouldn't have to ask them for anything. But what I do agree with you is that this is a good time to enter those discussions, because if from criminal justice mandates that at one time totaled $45 million based on what they did in Baton Rouge that we had to pay for, to maintenance of federal and state roadways and highways, from the environmental pollution that happens from those overpasses and those highways that we don't talk about, and its impact, especially on disparaged communities. That's a whole lot of money. So I agree that since they have a list of stuff they want us to do, maybe it's time to reactivate that historical list of what we want them to do, from interstates to casino support services. So there's a whole lot of items that hopefully the administration and our teams are in discussion with them. It's a good time to do it now. Go ahead, Ms. Hathaway.
All right. Shannon?
So we still have about 470 lights that still require repair. The next portion of the interstate plan for repairs is I-10 East Bank between Perdido and Vieux Carre. DPW is working with our DOTD partners on us getting several lane closures for this month. In partnership with our LA DOTD on the I-610 Elysian Fields, bringing to Rick's point, they're bringing DOTD LED street light upgrades, and 210 lights have been turned off to accommodate those upgrades. Did you have any questions, more questions on lights?
All right, then we'll move along and discuss the Ground Transportation Bureau. So right now, DPW is trying to build capacity in the department. We've hired a new administrator. We will welcome her in the next couple of weeks. She's a former DPW employee working in the parking administration section. We're happy to welcome her back. She's familiar with us and the operation, so it should be a smooth transition. We also have 2 additional cashiers that are undergoing training. We're hiring or training additional administrative professionals, but we do have approximately 15 vacancies that remain, and we're working with civil service and the budget office to get that staff on board as well so we can continue with the inspections and the operation itself. In 2024 progress, we've renewed 400 CPNC license, and we've renewed 225 driver tour guide permit renewals. Inspections continue, 300 CPNC inspections. That includes 50 taxis, 55 limo, 160 school buses, 10 non-emergency medical vehicles, and 3 pedicabs. We've extended the hours for the GTB so that we can accommodate the drivers so that they can get their vehicles inspected. And, we're collaborating with ORS and the council to discuss regulation of activity of using golf carts and other low-speed vehicles within, especially within the downtown area. Ordinances are being prepared and vetted, and we hope to have something to the council shortly. This legislation will focus on public safety, not only for the passengers of these vehicles, but also for the public, in particular pedestrians, who are more apt to be hit by low-speed vehicles that are moving and using sidewalks in areas not normally used by vehicles. We're expected to get this to you, the council, and so that it can be introduced in March. We're also working with the NOPD. We've met with the chief and to get assistance in securing the golf carts that are being used illegally and safely at this time. We're trying to schedule times when we can have our staff from GTB meet with the police department and go out into the streets of downtown in particular and secure these vehicles, and then bring them back to the tow yard. The determination of what to do with them will come next. We have not worked out those details. DPW is also partnering with Youth and Family Services to ensure appropriate inspections and enforcement of school buses. So we do that. There's normally scheduled in the April to August timeframe so that the buses are prepared for the next school year. So securing the staff at GTB is important so that we can continue these operations and make sure all of these buses are inspected properly. That concludes the program.
Okay, I know we have several speakers. Any online comments on this issue? And we have several speakers. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes. Please, if someone says what you said, you can amen that, or you can take you 2 minutes.
Before we move on with this one, I had 2 comments for the Sewage and Water Board
Yes.
that I missed reading. Thankfully, Mr. Nelson is still here. The first is from Melanie Thompson. She says, I'm a New Orleans East resident, and it's absolutely there's no logical explanation why my bill should be nearly $1,000. It's highly irregular and needs to be examined very closely. The infrastructure of New Orleans East isn't as old as the city of New Orleans. I, along with many residents in New Orleans, New Orleans bill should reflect the infrastructure we have in place since the East inception. And the other comment is from Tyria Bovia, who says, my water bill is almost $1,200 and I have no leaks at all. I have now seen a meter read for 3 months. I only saw a meter reader after I reported my bill to the Better Business Bureau. Almost every house on my street has received a high bill after they did work on my street. I need this looked into. Did you want to proceed with the in-person comments first?
Yes. First speaker, 2 minutes. My timer's out. I'm going to move to hopefully. No, timer's up. Okay, it's up there. Miss Grace Lewis.
Going first? I wasn't ready for that. Okay, I guess I have questions and statements. You might remember me from the Airbnb thing. Just to recap that, I lost to the lady from Pittsburgh, so I don't have that income anymore. Going from there, my insurance on my house caused my mortgage to go from $1,400 to $2,400. That's where I'm at for my side income. The reason why this is relevant is because I lost my job. The Tuesday before Mardi Gras, I was fired. Whew. All right, I'm gonna check this out. I'm a pedicab driver. I have been since 2016. I applied for the CP&Cs under the DBE, trying to get the ability to work for myself. I did that last year, and so I was fired because I applied for those permits. I was told that I am now competition, and therefore I can no longer operate. So that's where I am financially not great. Sorry. Whew. So I'm here to talk about two problems that I have with that. One is a DBE. I can't get one because I'm not an operating business. I'm trying to become an operating business, and I need CP&Cs to get the licensure to get a DBE. So I have applied, and I've stated that to the department, is that I would fully qualify as a DBE if given the CP&Cs, but I can't get there if I don't have approval, and there's like a paperwork problem there where the occupational license office needs a form that says I've been approved for CP&Cs, but I haven't been approved for CP&Cs, and it doesn't work. So I don't have a DBE. I could get one. Let's see. The other thing was I spoke with your office about trying to give out those permits individually to pedicab operators that have been operating. There is a current system where there are 3 companies. Those 3 companies work together in everything. And so if you do anything with one of them, then you can no longer work for any one of them. And that is just not a great situation to be in. And I know that a lot of us would like to be out from under that thumb and just be able to operate for ourselves. And what the comeback on that always is that we don't need any more pedicabs. We have 45. We have 45 based on Charleston, which has 100,000 people that live there, 250,000 tourists. We have 100,000. We have 400,000 people and 2 million tourists. And in 2013, there was a study by Malachi Hall that said we could afford at least 75 pedicabs. So if you guys could do anything to help that, I would really appreciate it.
Of course, you know, it was, we instituted the issue to actually look into that, and we're waiting on the new director to come up with some conclusions, especially about process, as well as how do we follow the mandate. We thought that would help create more DBEs. So that's in the works. Hopefully we'll get the new director in, and we'll have some resolution there, Ms. Lewis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Foster Fox.
Hello, good morning. I stand before you today as a pedicab operator to bring your attention to the epidemic of unlicensed golf carts acting illegally as taxis. Under the regulations of the GTB, we submit to a strenuous barrage of tasks, not only to obtain, but also to keep current our licenses. We then pay the owners of the CP&Cs a portion of our income in exchange for the express privilege of operating exclusively. Conversely, if a golf cart driver wants to operate as a taxi service, all they will need to do is simply go out and rent one. And because there's no regulation and seemingly no jurisdiction over these rogue elements, ultimately we're forced to watch some customers ride away with these golf carts. Sometimes it's the only source of income we have, and if I may editorialize, this profession brings with it a great amount of joy. We have tried since August 2022 to deal with these golf carts on our own, sometimes with the assistance of the French Quarter Task Force. And although it appears we have made some inroads, the resulting dialogue often sidesteps measurable enforcements, especially what department handles it. In conclusion, it is of vital importance that these illegal modes of transportation are removed once and for all, and sooner rather than later. The many events on the horizon, e.g. the Super Bowl, coupled with the city's inaction, would create a scene more fraught the longer it takes to be dealt with. The current paradigm doesn't work. No one seems to be offering any tangible solutions, and I feel as if we are reaching an inflection point. So I urge this council to take action very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lynch. P.J. Lynch.
My name is PJ Lynch, and I've been managing the Yellow Pedicab Company for the last 13 years. And I feel like what we're seeing right now is a culmination of frustration within the pedicab industry. In the last 60 days, we've gotten more tickets than the last 13 years combined from the Ground Transportation Bureau. And the shocking part of this for operators is we're kind of operating in the same manner, and I'm training people in the same manner that we've been doing in the last 13 years. But looking deeper into these tickets, we see that we're getting ticketed for like the most minuscule infractions. And the examples of these could be, you could have cracked vinyl on your pedicab, you could be dropping someone off at a corner. We had someone go to use the bathroom at the Monteleone, had to leave their pedicab, they came back and got a ticket. It's untenable to expect that this is the way that we operate. And we express our frustrations to the GTB, and we kind of get like a shrug, you know, like it is what it is, like the law says this and this is what we have to enforce. And I get that those guys have a job and they have to enforce it, but the manner in which they are enforcing has got to be the strictest interpretation. And they pretty much tell us, quote unquote, you can park at Harrah's, or you stay on the move, or you pay for a metered parking spot. We don't need 45 bikes competing with cars for metered parking spots on Saturday night. But this is the only solution that we've been told. And we've met with the council members over previous months and years, and like, I know that you guys want us to be successful. But when push comes to shove, I don't feel like we get the proper intervention with GTB, the council, NOPD, and we bring everyone in the room together to just nail this down. And I feel like you guys are now doing this with golf carts, which is like super helpful to us, but we also need to address the rules at which pedicabs are operating under. And we can do that by focusing on a dialogue created between the stakeholders, the drivers, French Quarter BA, French Quarter citizens, and the council, and creating an effective and efficient way that the industry can operate with rules that are guided by the GTB that they can address and fix over time. But right now, we have this very antiquated rules that are getting pushed down on us in the strictest way, and the riders are frustrated.
Thank you. Ground transportation has been a political ping pong ball. This is the Public Works Committee. We have a transportation committee that deals with airplanes, trains, and all other transportation things. But because somebody politically didn't want to deal with this issue or cab issue, they pushed it over to someplace else. I would hope that at some point there'll be a coalition or a committee working to give it the respect and the coordination that it needs, especially in a city that's building its tourism population back up. That swells every day, where in many cases we need more transportation opportunities, especially as we grow that business back. So I know Councilmember Green is committed. He was also confused as to why he would chair transportation and the transportation issue wouldn't be part of transportation. So hopefully we'll get together with the administration to work that out. It's the appropriate place. They've said they want to do that. And Mr. Lynch, I think it's important that we do that. Eric Sullivan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I largely want to amen what PJ said, but would just add from my personal perspective that upon landing the job of being a pedicab driver last July, I felt very fortunate to get a job that I feel uniquely qualified to excel at. Not that I necessarily deserve that job more than anyone else, but I'm good at it, and it opened up doors to me, and I've lived in the city just 2 years and feel very fortunate to have been welcomed here. And just in the past 3 weeks, with this turn on a dime toward much greater and strict enforcement, and after just anecdotally gathering the evidence from my coworkers, seemingly just being ticketed for just pulling over and actually seemingly following the letter of the law. I'm in a curbside lane. I'm within 3 feet of the curb, letting off a passenger and being ticketed. Sometimes having licenses revoked so that, a friend of mine couldn't work throughout the whole of Mardi Gras weekend. The sense of good luck and welcome that I felt as a new worker in the city has sort of dissipated, and it's just very unfortunate. It seems that enforcement has gone from being appropriate, maybe sparse but effective, to very severe, and it's produced a situation that my coworkers, who in my estimation are perfectly capable, I have really great faith in my coworkers to operate safely and efficiently. They're positively stressed. They're really harried by what is going on. So thank you.
No, thank you. Mr. Michael Badger.
Morning. Compared to motorized modes of transportation, pedicabs offer safe, convenient, and ways to get through the quarter. We are required by the city to go through a long permitting process, which ends up costing us nearly $200 of our own money. We do this every 2 years. On top of that, pedicabbing community self-enforces our best practices. There are other options for transportation in the city, obviously, none of which have the same rigorous permitting process. We have to go to a doctor to get our eyes checked. However, the Bureau recently, as everyone said, has decided to disproportionately issue arbitrary citations to licensed pedicabbers and to ignore completely any other kind of operators, licensed or not. Perhaps this myopic enforcement is because it's easier to stop a tricycle than it is a moving, unsafe vehicle. One of the issues, and there are many, is of safety. While pedicabber is off to the side waiting for a fare, an activity which has been ticketed multiple times over the past month, there are uninsured, unpermitted golf carts speeding the wrong way down Poydras. While a pedicabber is pedaling speeds incomparable to a car, there are rideshare drivers hitting pedestrians on Bourbon Street. Pedicabs are inherently safe, and it is the motorized vehicles which create a dangerous environment. I would like to suggest that the Bureau cease targeting the safest mode of transportation available and instead put their energy into more mindful enforcement. I suggest organizing a meeting directly between the Bureau and the pedicab operators so we can find compromises, create an equitable working environment, and allow everyone a chance to do their jobs, because as the Bureau is currently operating, pedicabbers are unable to operate effectively as we have been in the city for over a decade. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody Boudreau.
Morning. Thank you for letting me speak. I want to second everything everyone has said, and my standpoint comes from the unfair targeting to the pedicabbers when we want a bathroom break, a water break, a eating break, and just taking a break from pulling around a 250-pound vehicle. You know, then you've got my weight, then you've got approximately 300-pound passenger each, you know, on a pedicab and riding through the city, but not allowed to stop, not allowed to pull over and check your phone, not allowed to pull over, let the customer go into the business and get a drink and come back out when we are licensed tour guides. It's really kind of this low-hanging fruit, and we have been told that we are being targeted because we are a great source of revenue, and it's so easy to target us because we're so visible and out there. Again, the licensing takes months for us to go through, and we're just not really understanding how, you know, this has become so hard for us to do our jobs and feel unafraid. I've been hit by a drunk driver on my pedicab at 1:30 on a Sunday afternoon. You know, I have lots of injuries still from that. And, you know, we're not the criminals out there. There are so many criminals out there that, you know, are doing the things that we all know about, you know, shootings on specific areas of Bourbon. If you want, come take a ride with us so you can see what we see and what we're experiencing in the most, you know, ridiculous forms of, come on, we're pedicabbers serving the people that are visiting New Orleans, and they love the pedicabs. And we do very good jobs. We love our jobs, and we really just want to continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I use them. Noah Rahman. Followed by Angela Scott.
All right, thank you, council people, for addressing this issue. I'm sorry that Councilperson Giarrusso isn't here because he and I have had a good relationship dating back to the utility plant approval in the East a while back. My primary employment's in the higher education industry, so I have more jobs than just the pedicab industry, but by and large, my observation has been that we as pedicabbers are predominantly law-abiding. I'm sorry to say that that can't be said of certain other practitioners in this industry, namely the golf carts, who routinely threaten us and brag in our face that they're paying off people in the 5th District, which is funny to me because I don't see how the 5th District would help them around the Superdome, but I guess they can figure that out. And I'm glad to hear that GTB and OPD are going to meet, because then maybe we can figure out whether it's worth going to PIB or not, or the golf carts are going to brag about paying them off too. But to circle back to the overarching issue of GTB enforcement, the appearance seems to be that since you have these people that are operating on God knows roads where the speed limit is over 25 or over state roads, they're breaking state laws, and GTB is doing less than they could about them. It really does seem like that pedicabbers are low-hanging fruit. And I don't remember which council person it was, if it was Councilperson Green or Councilperson Morrell, forgive me, who was talking about doing maybe more deals with the state in exchange for things that they want. My understanding is that around the Superdome and the Smoothie King, I think around the Superdome, those roads might have been turned over to the state in exchange for certain things. I don't know if it would be a good look for the city to have golf carts openly flouting the rules about operating on state roads if that were to be a thing. So that might be one further issue that I would want to submit for your gentleman's consideration. In summary, I think that just the degree of overall law-abidingness should be rewarded in comparison with, these other operators in the space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rahman. Angela Scott. Followed by Sarah Miller. Sarah Elizabeth Miller.
Hello, I'm Angela Scott and I ride with Bike Taxi Unlimited. As a pedicab driver, I'm lucky to be part of the heartbeat of the city. I'm involved in any events anywhere from getting people to work, arriving to dinner on time, or being part of people's weddings, carrying them mobility issues, our elderly people involved in the second line. I know people personally. I do my best to be thoughtful and of all residents and other tour guides while focusing on the safety of me and the customers in my pedicab. I feel these new laws have no intent more than harassing and adding headache to everyone involved. If safety were a concern, then I wouldn't daily see cars parked in bike lanes or unlicensed golf carts, which I'll get back to. We wait patiently for carriage riders. We turn down our music while passing residential areas or walking tour guides on so as not to disturb them. In the rare events we do use paths less traveled, it's taken for our safety and our customers' safety. When cars are blasting down Canal Street or Canal Boulevard, Convention Boulevard, with no concern for others, we might take the neutral ground. But quite frankly, in this city, bike lanes are often blocked, especially near hotels. Four-wheelers blast through the streets. Drunk drivers run lights, and speeding cars are aggressive and swerve, nearly hitting us or other cars or pedestrians, all of which are rarely dealt with. However, currently we ride for hours, hungry and fear stopping to get food, water, or use the restrooms because we might get a ticket. I'm aware the city has limited police force to handle the things and the problems we have. We are all focused on the safety of us and the customers while working with the system that we are given. We have no motors, therefore we are likely the slowest and best option for all areas, including pedestrian crossings. I value my job deeply and I appreciate the measures we take to get it, like background checks and drug tests. These are efforts taken for the safety and care of the tourists that keep the city thriving. Currently, there are no guidelines for golf carts, there are no background checks or even measures to make sure they are insured, which puts the city at a huge risk for massive lawsuits when one of them get in an accident. And I say when because it's not if, because accidents do happen. It's just part of life. And I do not believe the carts drivers nor the city are prepared for the backlash of unlicensed and uninsured golf carts would bring, while multiple tourists are injured when they come here with the confidence that they will leave the city safe and unharmed.
Thank you. Sarah Elizabeth Miller.
Hi, good morning, Council. Thank you so much for having us.
Good afternoon.
I want to start just by saying how proud I am of my coworkers for coming out and so eloquently laying out this issue. I don't want to be redundant, so I will put aside most of what I've written, but I do want to give a testament to just the air of confusion and honestly nihilism that I'm seeing out on the streets as a pedicab driver. Every single day, pedicab drivers are seeing drunk motorists, people on rental scooters who don't know the city very well, who are driving intoxicated. The golf carts have been well reviewed by some of my coworkers. And I just want to offer an invitation, I guess, to you to reach out to us, the drivers, when going forward with drafting this legislation. Because the rules that are in place right now and the way that they are being enforced do not make any sense to us. And frankly, they don't keep anyone safe. The absurdity of these rules and the way that they are being enforced are actually creating more absurd and unsafe behavior on the streets, on the part of the pedicabbers and on the part of every other motorist on the street. I'm not saying that it's okay, but I can absolutely understand how a pedicab driver could see someone driving intoxicated, could see people parked in the bike lanes, could see golf carts operating unlicensed, and think, okay, well, pedicabs are so much less likely to cause an accident. They're so much more vulnerable than all of the other motor vehicles on the street. You know, why won't I just do what everyone else is doing? Does it really matter? And I'm, again, not saying that that's an okay stance to take, but I can absolutely understand where people are coming from when they're deciding to behave that way. And so, in summary, I would just like to ask if there's any way that you can have input from the pedicab drivers when making any changes to the operation of the Ground Transportation Bureau. Because we have people in our community who are very civically minded, who care about this industry, who care about this city, and who care about the people that we serve. And we would really like to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Emma Campbell, followed by Jordan Michael Hallbaker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to add
Good
my
afternoon.
personal experience. I've been a pedicabber for 7 years. It's helping me put me through school right now. It's a job I thoroughly enjoy and love because I love New Orleans. I think one of the best parts of this job is that we get to connect with the tourists. People who have never been here, they get to see it for the first times. It's also helping people who are old, who are injured, who are lost, who are drunk. That's the majority of the rides, and so often that's because I'm in unusual places, going down somewhere at the end of Bourbon Street, being able to sit somewhere, talk to them for a while, pull up to a curb and help a little old lady on, take her safely, leave the cab there for a minute while I have a nice conversation, help her upstairs. There's just so much more to this job than rules and restrictions. It's so much more about personality and having a good time. And there's now a ring of fear because we're getting ticketed. We don't know how much those tickets are. It's an anonymous fee. And it just has really put it like a dark cloud over a really beautiful industry that's also really environmentally friendly and just good for our roads. And I think a really beautiful asset to New Orleans. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jordan Michael Hallbaker. We have any online comments? Okay. Mr. Hallbaker.
Councilmember Thomas, thanks. Hey, Mrs. Tyler. It's been a while since I've been up here. I am here for information only. I just have a couple questions. First, I'm going to start with Public Works, just because that's y'all, and something more Public Works, which is, if you can run back to JIRR, was Desire Group C and D on there, RR028 and 029?
Yeah.
It was? Okay. Because I remember we talked about the Florida group, which is, I think 46 and 47, and then also Desire Group C and D, I think, was linked in on that on 28 and 29. I just want to also commend you. You've been great and very communicative. And I know it's been delayed a little bit, so I was just wanting to see if there's an update on RR28 and RR29 on C and D. A lot of residents back in the Upper Ninth Ward and Desire area said they haven't had the roads fixed since before Katrina. So I just want to make sure that is on the radar. The second thing is to the GTB. Just a couple of questions for that. I do agree that this should be switched over to Transportation Committee because Public Works deals with, public work things. But it's pretty simple. The timeline on this, February 16th, the ordinance changes, raises the permits to 65 for DB participation. June 2023, applications open up. There's a little rule here, section 162-1661. GTP shall hear publicly all applicants seeking a permit for pedicabs on at least a biannual basis. Legally speaking, there's an obligation to be heard before June 2024. I want to say that with respect to the transition to the new GTP director, as well as the new director, Mr. Hathaway, for Public Works. Appreciate you guys appreciate you guys. That's all I'm saying. Mr. Thomas, your office, Councilman Thomas, your office has been amazing as well. My only question was, with respect to that, is there a plan in place to have a public hearing by June of 2024?
I think that'll be up to us to coordinate to do that. I don't know why we shouldn't, but we'll be in council to talk about having that. And I think the recommendation to have the pedicab drivers included, I don't know why they haven't been, but they're a vital part of transportation, especially as we grow the city back with the special events. I wrote down some comments.
Yeah, I also want to just back up what they said.
Yeah.
And say that there should be stakeholders at the table as well,
absolutely.
and they should be brought in, as well as what's happening out there, the crackdowns.
Well, I'm going to recommend that we, especially when the new director comes in, that we have a hearing with the transportation agents and pedicab be represented as stakeholders at their tables. That'll be my recommendation.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Cool. The roads, I'll email you. Sorry.
All right. Any online comments?
Yes, we have 9 online comments.
Okay.
It looks like we have one more here.
Yes.
My name is Rob Lynch. I submitted a card. It should be up there. I think you combined it with Foster Fox's early on.
I might have combined the Lynches, right?
You may have.
I think 2 Lynches spoke, yeah.
No, I'm
Go ahead. Take your 2 minutes, Mr. Lynch. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of issues with the for-hire vehicle industry right now. I think that the fact that the Ground Transportation Bureau can't issue municipal tickets is a big part of that. I also think that the fact that the ground transportation hasn't had a leader since the pandemic is also resulting in a lot of these issues. There's been an increase in unlicensed for hire vehicles over the past few years, and now you're seeing strains on the industry. That's going to be the long wait times for permits, which will take weeks to months, and the recent rigid parking enforcements for pedicab are resulting in tickets as well as bikes being pulled off the streets for minor infractions, such as a tear in the seat. What's been created is an imbalance in enforcement. You are essentially encouraging vehicles to operate illegally because there are no requirements and no repercussions for them. And you're discouraging legal operations by taking a hard line on a ridiculous part of the ordinance that literally only allows pedicabs to pay for a parking meter to be stopped on public property. In less than a year, the Super Bowl is coming, and these issues need to be addressed. We need a leader, and we need to be able, the Ground Transportation Bureau needs to be able to issue municipal tickets, which is currently allowed in the ordinance because our police force is facing its own issues. Pedicabs also need to be allowed to stop places. That's just common sense. The ordinance should be allowed to, or should be amended such that the ground transportation should be able to make and enforce these common sense stopping laws for pedicabs. Also, our fares haven't been reviewed in a decade. They're supposed to be reviewed every other year, and they haven't changed since the ordinance has been in place, as well as the fact that they haven't changed, and I don't think they've been reviewed since 2010. And lastly, as far as participation of the drivers in the industry, I think that would be great. I think they have a lot to say. They're going to know the best places to park as well. But you also didn't seek their input when you decided to potentially increase the industry by 20 more vehicles.
Thank you. Online comments, please. Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
First comment is from Deborah Lombard. She says, Dear City of New Orleans Department of Public Works, for years I have been driving up and down Broadway Street between River Road, League Avenue, and Claiborne Avenue, and not once have I seen all of the Broadway streetlights working, nor even close. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, I was so pleased to see a truck and crew fixing or replacing streetlights on Broadway Street near Birch and Green Streets. However, to my concerned dismay, even after the lighting crew was right there, there are at least 4 streetlights out between Oak and Hickory Street on Broadway. The ongoing lack of lighting on Broadway Street, especially south of Ferret Street and north of Willow Street, is very dangerous for driving at nighttime, with it being so very dark all along Broadway, as stated. Please have an audit of all Broadway streetlights done and fix the ones not working well or not working at all. Thank you. Next comment is from David Robert Shaw, representing Bike Taxi Unlimited. He says here's a list of problems with the current ordinance. For some reason, number one, for some reason, we pay money that only enforces rules upon us. Anyone can ride an unlicensed bike or a golf cart with complete impunity. At the same time, tickets are being levied on pedicabs for parking in parking spaces throughout the city. It has taken number two, it has taken the Ground Transportation Bureau nearly 3 years to get back online. Not a single member of enforcement has ever even so much as ridden a cab. They are currently enforcing rules that were never enforced until a few months ago. The ordinance needs to be changed or updated to reflect the actual needs of pedicabs in the city. We need to be able to park in the same place we have traditionally been allowed to operate. If the ordinance does not reflect these spaces, then it needs to be updated to meet the need of the operators and the tourists who purchase the service. Number three, pedicabs must have spaces they are allowed to take for rest, wait for customers, and eat food. Number four, the city's tourists value our services. It would be nice to find a city council that not only recognizes this, but continues to help us enrich the tourism industry instead of subtracting from it. Number five, there is discussion of adding 20 new pedicab licenses. Nothing could do less to address the needs of the industry than this. This would further create inequality throughout the industry. It would allow one operator full monopoly over one bike that they would have zero incentive to share with another rider. On top of that, there is not a single fair methodology that you could distribute those licenses. Next comment is from Clifford Jugar. He says, when can we expect the lights on the I-10 between the flyover and Louisa addressed? There are so few working. Also, Almonaster near the overpass. Allison Matthews with New Orleans Pedicab says the current ordinance to keep pedicabs in constant motion is untenable. We have positive relationships with hotels, restaurants, and other places of business that do not mind our presence in front of or near said businesses, allowing pedicabs to park in areas other than the casinos, such as in hotel loading zones with the hotel's permission, and loading zones not in use, in hack stands or taxi stands not in use, in front of fire hydrants not in use, parking in bicycle corrals, or stopping in yellow triangles would greatly benefit the public. Next comment is from Tina McCrory, who says, hi, I'm a pedicabber writing to urge the committee to expand the areas allowed to pedicabbers to wait safely to pick up their riders. Recently, there's been an increase in citations on us who are just out doing our jobs. We provide a fun, environmentally friendly way for the tourists in the French Quarter who are so vital to our local economy to get around and enjoy the area. We decrease the motor traffic in the area and enhance the experience for lots of visitors. We are asking for you to consider expanding the areas we can be while waiting for customers to help us coexist with both residents, visitors, and other types of leisure transportation in the area. Areas that have recently been cited, but have also been seen to be safe, efficient areas that we would like to be allowed to use include loading zones not in use, hotel loading zones not in use, taxi stands not in use, as well as yellow triangle areas, keeping in mind that we are actually a taxi service providing the same service as a taxi but more environmentally friendly in terms of pollution, as well as wear and tear on the fragile roads throughout the area. Also, we offer services to the hotels whose loading zones we may be using and would seek the permission of said hotels to use the space. Certainly, while utilizing these spaces, we would be with the pedicab to allow safe moving of the pedicab should the space be needed otherwise. Thank you for helping us work together to keep the French Quarter tourism economy healthy and help us all benefit from the beautiful historic area. Next comment is from Andrew Cominelli, who says, I've been pedicabbing in New Orleans for 9 years. I'm ambassador of the city of New Orleans and a good one. Just like hotel workers, tour guides, cab drivers, bartender servers, and unrelated Uber Lyft drivers, the pedicab drivers are part of the ecosystem of the city's tourism industry. I have introduced thousands of people to the French Quarter by bringing them around on a pedicab. I have helped confused people find their cars and safely return inebriated people back to their hotels. Many times I have been the only transportation option for passengers with mobility issues, especially during festivals when the quarter is blocked off to car traffic. I have carried an injured person to the Tulane Medical Center ER on the back of my pedicab. What I'm getting at is this: pedicabs aren't just fun. They provide a safe, useful, environmentally friendly, unobtrusive mode of transport for both residents and visitors of New Orleans. The GTB is well within the letter of the law to ticket us, as they have been, though I will note that the sudden uptick and aggressiveness of ticketing is unique in my 9 years. I believe that the ordinance governing where the pedicabs are allowed to ride, stop, and stage needs to be revised. I urge the council to remember that this ordinance was written and signed into law before pedicabs were actually put on the streets. Therefore, in terms have no relation to the practical reality of operating pedicab. Forcing pedicabs to adhere to the same parking laws as motor vehicles may sound correct in theory, but in practice it is so impractical as to be absurd. A pedicabber abiding by every parking law would not be allowed to pull over for most passengers who wave them down, and would have to turn down almost every fare because they would not be allowed to drop off at a passenger's desired destination. I fully understand that pedicabs are licensed and permitted vehicles and therefore have always been subject to the same regulations as motor vehicles. At the same time, pedicabs are required by city ordinance to stay in the rightmost lanes at all times, required to use bicycle lanes when one is present, and disallowed from riding on roads whose speed limits exceed 35 miles per hour. That's the end of that. Thank you. The next comment is from Bryson Lloyd, who says, pedicabs are received in open arms by almost every resident of the quarter and surrounding neighborhoods they work in. The gross mistreatment of drivers by GTB officers needs to stop. Actual ticketing for breaking of the city ordinances makes sense. Other than that, it doesn't. The lack of acknowledgement of the city ordinances when ticketing pedicab driver in New Orleans is atrocious and unlawful. The lack of city enforcement of rogue for-hire vehicles is really sad for those following the laws and ordinances. For example, the golf carts that are out every single weekend. The GTB telling pedicab drivers they are not allowed to sit anywhere except Harrah's patio is inhumane. Please, can they have some respite and ability to park in places that are not in the flow of vehicular or pedestrian traffic, such as outside the Montleon on Decatur Street and on the corner of Bourbon and Iberville? Thank you for your time. Second to last comment is from Sarah Caitlin Rich, who says GTB is harassing pedicab workers by not allowing a pause to pick up a customer or to take a drink of water. They're making it impossible to work without endangering our health and hindering our ability to earn wages. This GTB nonsense needs to stop. And the last comment is from Daniel Waite. Dear New Orleans City Council, I'm writing to urgently address a concerning incident that occurred while I was working as a bike taxi driver during the past Mardi Gras. As a dedicated member of the city's workforce, I am deeply troubled by the recent surge in illegal golf carts for hire and the lack of enforcement by the city, which directly impacts the safety of bike taxi drivers like myself, as well as the people who are unknowingly hiring an unlicensed and uninsured golf cart driver. While working on a bike taxi, I encountered a distressing situation where I was nearly run into by a golf cart operating illegally as a taxi driver, driving the wrong way down the street. Shockingly, my attempts to address this hazardous behavior were met with aggression and threats of violence from not just one, but two separate golf cart drivers. This alarming experience highlights the urgent need for action to protect the safety of bike taxi drivers who provide an essential service to residents and visitors alike. It's unacceptable that such incidents are occurring with impunity, especially during high-traffic events like Mardi Gras. I am scared and worried for the day, and I assure you that it is not if but when it comes that golf carts will be driving someone and a horrible accident will happen and everyone will wonder, why was this allowed in the city? I implore the City Council to take immediate and decisive action to address these safety concerns. Strengthening enforcement measures against illegal golf carts for hire and ensuring compliance with regulations by taxi services are imperative steps to safeguarding and the well-being of bike taxi drivers and other safe and legal forms of transportation. Additionally, I urge the Council to prioritize increased patrols and stricter penalties for violators to deter such reckless behavior in the future. Our city's reputation and the safety of its workforce depend on swift and effective action to address these pressing issues. Thank you for your attention. That's it.
Thank you. I have actually some people were waiting for me for a meeting that was for 11:45, but Councilmember Green is going to ask the question and close it out. But I wrote a couple comments just in observing. First of all, I want to thank the folks in the industry, the pedicab drivers, for coming down and participating. as long as this is our process and I'm chair, I'm going to recommend that you guys are included at the table. Any discussions about where we go, how we manage this industry, how we enforce it, how we grow it, and how we move forward. What I know, and I've used pedicabs, is that they promote real good customer service, friendly, fitness, and a lot of different things. So they've been a pretty good addition. What I'm concerned about, Mr. Hathaway, is that it seems that now, as the city is growing some of our agencies and departments, that I think we have to be careful and mindful that we're not so much better at enforcement than delivery of service. And I'm seeing that in some agencies that where we might not, the service may not be provided, but as soon as there's an opportunity to do enforcement is more aggressive than actually delivery and dependability of the service. And I think we have to be mindful for that, especially in a potential growth industry. So I would hope as we get together and convene, especially when the new director comes on board, that not only is the rest of the industry at the table, but this vital industry is at the table and part of how we grow, how we manage, and how we have enforcement. And I would hate to see the people who follow the rules continue to get punished a whole lot more than the folk who don't, because they don't care. Thank you.
I just had a quick question, and we can kind of close it out, but I think the public should know, and we should know, what is the difficulty in enforcing the laws relative to the golf carts?
You want to answer that one?
So there were a few different things. Because they're not legal anywhere in the city of New Orleans except designated spaces on golf courses.
Right.
Those are the only places that we're allowed to have signs. Right now, we don't have a means to store them. And then there's also some agencies using them, the police force, the DDD, schools are using them to pick up trash. So we have to have like a strong line of demarcation of like who we intend to allow to use these things and how we intend to force. Are we going to allow hotels to use them to transport luggage from tourists? So we have ORS working on the legislation, and so we'll be happy to provide those documents to you to see if you have any input. We also intend to use NOPD as well as our parking and towing, supplemental towing contract. Right now, they can't be disposed of in a landfill, so we can't treat them as obstructions in the right-of-way. We actually have to let them the tow companies take ownership of them, and then how they choose to dispose of after that. We don't have impoundment services for these vehicles.
Actually, unfortunately, the way I asked that question, if I owned a golf cart right now, I'd go into the French Quarter and just use it, because you said you can't take them, you can't, there are too many people operating. Mm-hmm. That's a whole lot of reasons that.
Well, they're already illegal.
Driving, I know.
The only people that can do it would be NOPD, because it would be a moving violation of a legal vehicle in the right-of-way.
So, I guess my question would be, what's the difficulty in NOPD? It's not a person power issue, manpower or woman power issue, I guess, because you can see them so easily and wave them down and say, right, unless you're working for a hotel or the school, you're doing something illegal, right?
Right. Well, even then, that's illegal as well. So we can't do a selective enforcement. We'd have to enforce all the way across the board.
Maybe a message needs to be sent with a serious 1 or 2 week crackdown that just says you're not going to be able to do it with complete impunity, because it's an accident waiting to happen. Because I do see the article one day being written that the city turned its back on an industry that then resulted in people getting injured because it wasn't regulated. But if it is, it's not if it either is or isn't illegal for a hotel to do so or a school to do so. And I guess that's why you all are putting the ordinance together. But it seems like it would be easy to make a statement with regards to golf carts, especially, that this is not something that we're going to tolerate.
Yeah.
Ask the person for a license. If they don't have a license, you get a citation.
Right.
I know it's always more complex than that, but it seems that could be done for 1 or 2 weekends to send a message.
We had this conversation with NOPD about it too, and we're going to work on a public awareness campaign ahead of confiscating anybody's properties. So.
You don't want to get into the business of confiscating the property if you can adequately warn and let people see the impact that it has on the industry, but also to remind them that if an accident does happen and they're driving an illegal vehicle like that, they stand to be sued. They stand to have their assets, personal assets, taken from them too. So I would think that the public relations campaign should start sooner than later, you know?
Great.
Okay. Thank you all for your time today. I appreciate it. And to everyone who was here today, we're adjourned.
Thank you.